All right, guys, I'm asking you to put your prayers out for my cousins, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth that I have down in Tennessee. I'm going to tell you about three brothers. The oldest one was my dad. Then there was a middle one named Ernest. And then there was a younger one named Tommy. William, Ernest, and Tommy. My dad was oldest. He was born in 1930. The other two came behind him over the next 5 years, I think it was. I think the youngest one was 4 or 5 years younger than my dad. Um, they grew up during the Great Depression. They ended up into adoption homes and stuff, and finally got adopted by Mr. and Mrs. Jones, who had a tobacco farm, who needed some people to help them with their farm. And I know that sounds, some of you might not think that means anything, but I asked my dad, he was the oldest, I said, did they love you? And my dad said, Mr. and Mrs. Jones loved all three of us. So, as we got older, or as they got older, my dad, the Korean War came up, and he thought all three of them were going to be dragged up into the draft. Well, my dad made a deal with the devil. He told the army, he said, I will volunteer for your front line as long as you don't make either of my brothers go to battle. If you draft them, it's one thing, but just make sure they don't go into battle, and I'll volunteer for the front lines. Well, my dad was sent to the Chosin Reservoir battle. He walked away with 3 Bronze Stars and a Silver Star. Now, I'm going to bring you up to Tommy, my Uncle Tommy. And this is for my family down there in Tennessee. I begged him. When my dad got out of the Korean War, he was messed up bad. He spent over a year in a hospital trying to deal with him mentally. Well, they kind of got him straightened out, and he met my mom, and they met out in Arizona. I had my sister in Arizona, Phoenix. A couple or less than a year and a half later, I was born in Nashville, right where the same place my dad was born, and then my brother was born in Indianapolis. So my parents moved, just like I did. Now I often wonder if they weren't looking for the same thing I was looking for when I moved around from state to state. I was looking for a home that I never found. But I had this Uncle Tommy that I met when I was a kid. And he had a son, and he was Tommy Robertson Jr., which was my cousin. And they did things I wanted to do. And when I met him, I was like, oh, that was great. But I started talking to my Uncle Tommy and telling him how my dad treated me. Over years, I would tell him, look, man, Dad, It's crazy. He'll hit me with anything. It's getting crazy. And I begged him to let me move down there to Tennessee with him. I begged him. He said, Brian, there ain't nothing I can do, man. Your parents ain't even going to allow that. There ain't nothing I can do. Even though he knew. He knew me and Dad fought like cats and dogs, man, every night almost. Blood. My blood being spilled. I'm going to move it up to me and my wife after our kids were raised out in Arizona. Me and my wife and kids moved to Tennessee around my uncle and my cousins and everything. We were living right down there with them. Well, I got sick. I got bad sick. And these doctors that I trusted could not figure out what was wrong with me. It didn't matter. They did everything. They claimed I was bleeding internally. They did an upper GI and a lower GI. I even swallowed a camera pill and wore a computer on my chest for like 12 hours. I swallowed this pill so it could go through my entire digestive system to try to find out where I was bleeding. They said I was bleeding so bad that I would go down to over in Knoxville where they were giving chemotherapy to people. Well, I'd go in there and sit in them big comfortable chairs and let them pump iron back into my blood because I had no iron in my blood. I dropped like 95 pounds in like 8-9 months. The doctors finally got to a point they were telling my family members, my wife and stuff, look, his organs are getting ready to shut down. Best thing you guys can do is start planning a funeral. That's what these doctors were telling my family members about me. So they started. Now, my Uncle Tommy that died yesterday, he was a preacher in a Church of Christ, that's still in Jacksboro, and that's where his funeral's going to happen at. He preached a lot there, and he also did a TV show where he was preaching. That ran on TV down there in Jacksboro and La Follette and Caryville and stuff. It was a local TV station. They got to the point they thought I was dying, so my Uncle Tommy went in, from what I hear is what I was told, they went into the church that he was a preacher at and started praying for me. People, let me tell you something. It wasn't long. And the doctors were freaking. I had no more iron in my blood. I had no problems anywhere. And I was getting better. That's a fact. The doctors couldn't explain it at all. Now, this was a few years before COVID-19 came in, and I was still kind of following these doctors. But when Operation COVID-19 hit, I walked away from all of them. And my uncle who's no longer here. He brought me to Jesus. Nobody else. And that's where I've been ever since. Now I ask you people to pray for my family. And to seek Jesus. Because that's what he told me to do. And I did. Love y'all. I beg you to seek Jesus. It's the only way out of this. Seek him. And you'll find him. I assure you that. Love you guys.